Like you said, it was literally like a be and end or dream. Around the age of 15 or 16, I always had pain. I one day lost the all ability to walk. Well, I was in complete pain. If anyone tells you what 10 out of 10 pain is, I think I would know what it looks like. It was about 11 or 12 doctors to officially confirm that I had arthritis. Because if you speak about arthritis, if you ask anyone, it's an old person's disease. You know, you see your grandma with it, you see old people with it, riddles it. But there's actually a huge number that juvenile have it. It's just not readily spoken about or talked about. Well, I think the most important thing to understand is you can't change the past. That's who I am. That's the cards I've been dealt. But you know what? That's going to dictate my future. So mentally, I had to accept I've got something. I can't just push it off as something lighthearted. It is a serious disease. It affects my life. It will affect my life for my whole life. So the first thing to come to do is just to accept it. This year is probably one of my lowest years and one of my most challenging years, but also one of my most mentally succeeding fortitude years. So I may not get on stage. You know what? I may help someone get on stage. And that's 90% of the journey done. That's 0% of the suffering, and their win is my win. So it's about finding where can I get as close as I get that will satisfy me.
The first and greatest victory to conquer is yourself, according to Plato. Pair this with some wisdom from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And you will discover that the true nature... Oh, fuck, I fucked that up. I'm starting again. Yeah. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself, according to Plato. Pair this with some wisdom from Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And you will discover that true power isn't found in the domination of others. It is found in the domination over your own mind, your own body and response to your suffering. When life hands you pain, chronic, unpredictable, uninvited, what do you do with it? Do you let it define you, or do you decide who you're going to become in spite of it?
In today's episode, we're joined by James Roseworne, a competitive bodybuilder, coach, and walking embodiment of what it means to fight back. Not just against disease, but against the urge to give up. From being medically retired from football at 17 to building a physique that stands tall in the face of juvenile arthritis, this is a story of relentless mindset, masculine responsibility, and becoming your own strongest foundation. Welcome to the Jacked Philosopher, James.
Thank you, boys, for having me.
Absolutely.
How have you been? What have you been up to?
Me, not just working, just enjoying life.
Yeah?
That's pretty much it. Just trying to make the most of myself.
What do you do to enjoy life?
Me, I just love watching YouTube, going out with my partners, playing with our pets. Pretty much that. Time away from work.
Oh, yeah.
If it's not the gym, that's my time off.
Oh, that's good.
It's a good balance to have.
Absolutely.
So you grew up in Bowral, which is lovely country town, and you're a football player, right? That's soccer for us Aussies, yeah?
Soccer.
Yeah. And you were chasing sort of high-level football. What did the dream kind of look like back then, and how did that version of James see the world?
So back then, life really is like me now. It's just football, football, football. I come from a football family. My granddad played professionally in Singapore. My uncle plays for very high reps. So I'm surrounded by football. So back then, literally, the goal was just play professionally. Ideally in the UK, that's where my family's from. To go back home, had ties back there. So the whole life for me was literally about football. I was training 3 or 4 times a week, trying to chase the dream. That was literally just my life like now.
Oh, wow. So, and that was obviously in Bowral. So did they have a sort of football system there, or were you traveling to play?
I was traveling.
You were traveling?
Up into the Sydney 3 days a week.
Oh, well.
So grateful for my parents that would dedicate their afternoons, the whole Saturdays to travel, possibly 2 or 3 hours up to places like here from Bowral.
Wow.
And how long was that for? How long were you playing football until?
About 17, I stopped playing. I played locally up to 17, but before then I was playing semi-professionally in the MPL, MPL2, stuff like that, representing country, stuff like that. So in my eyes, I was on track of where I wanted to be.
Yeah. How did you find the commitment side of things? Obviously being so young, playing such a high-level sport, the training side of things, maybe even the diet side of things, did you find that you initially struggled with that, or you had such a big passion to make it in that league that you essentially had the mindset of, I'm going to do whatever it takes regardless? Like how did that mindset develop into being able to consistently stick to a routine of training 3 times a week and, essentially things that as young adolescents, I guess we haven't really developed the skill set yet to hone in on from the discipline side of things. How did you find all that from a young kid getting into it so early?
Like you said, it was literally like a be and end all dream. I'm very grateful that my 2 parents are very driven. Like I get my competitiveness, I get my ego, I get my cockiness all from them. So for them, it was you either give 100%, especially because they're paying such a huge price for fees, clubs. We're traveling all this way. We're going to do everything that you want to, but you got to give us 100% back. So it was as simple as if I want to get it, they'll do everything they can for me until I decide to quit or I give up. Therefore, it's not worth their time. It was like
not
that.
like it. That's interesting because you said until you decide to quit or give up, but that's not what happened, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. If it was still, if I didn't have my disease I do now, I think football would still be my number 1 passion.
Okay. So walk us through, obviously, we briefly touched on it that you were diagnosed with something. When did that first diagnosis take place, and walk us through exactly what it is that, you were presented with at such a young age?
So official diagnosis was about 18, but I've been suffering with what I call a shadow/hidden pain since I was about 14 or 15. I just couldn't put my finger on what it is. So arthritis is obviously a genetic disease. So I both get it from my dad and my mum's mum. So I have 2 path lines, therefore I'm initially to get it, but they didn't know because you don't think about it. So around the age of 15 or 16, I always had pain or a tear that I thought was so it sits in my left SI joint. So where your ball and socket sits, those ligaments are what are inflamed. So that's why it's rheumatoid arthritis, not osteoarthritis.
Yep.
So it was always a source of discomfort. Obviously, I'm playing high soccer, so I'm pushing my body to the absolute fatigue. So I originally thought it was a tear or something. It lasted a very long time. It would come in waves. The more I push myself, the bigger games, the less rest I have, the more I thought it was that. It wasn't until I moved up in Sydney by myself, 2019. I was about 18, that I one day lost the all ability to walk.
Well,
I was in complete pain. If anyone tells you what 10 out of 10 pain is, I think I would know what it looks like.
Yep.
It was officially then that it was in full activation. I had to call my mum. My mum travelled up from Barrel to come and get me because I thought I was going to hospital. We went and saw a chiro to begin with because we thought it was just some sort of pain. They obviously did the best that they can. And they said the best thing you can do is get an MRI that will give us an actual answer. I ran and got an MRI. Then he went and got to a sports doctor. So they referred me to a sports doctor. The sports doctor therefore referred me to a juvenile arthritis specialist. Therefore, I was confirmed with that I had juvenile arthritis. Missing over heaps of little hurdles back then. It was about 11 or 12 doctors to officially confirm that I had arthritis, because if you speak about arthritis, if you ask anyone, it's an old person's disease. You see your grandma with it, you see old people with it, riddles it, but there's actually a huge number that juvenile have it. It's just not readily spoken about or talked about, especially in Australia.
Right.
And do you think that sort of, I guess, doctors are not as willing to diagnose that because of that sort of connotation?
I think so, and I think I just don't fit the stigma. I was fit, I was healthy. Why would I have something like that? That's an old person's disease. Doctors aren't, obviously, they can do the best that they can, but at the end of the day, they can't diagnose everything. They're not miracle workers. It was just the fact that I knew something was wrong with me, and the fact that they weren't willing to pursue it properly. They always assumed that it was a tear or I had strained something. So in my eyes, I was just getting dismissed. It was causing me to go into a deep depression because no one's listening to me. I know I'm in pain. And it's not until I literally hit the verge of collapse that something had to get done.
Yes.
Because all those days, like especially around game days and stuff like that, I was limping. So I looked like a penguin. I was waddling because it's the ball socket joint. You cannot get rid of it. It's like an elbow or something. You just not use it. It's walking. So yeah, it was just at a point that it was something had to get done.
And when you found out the official diagnosis and they told you, okay, you've got juvenile arthritis and whatnot, did you know straight away that soccer was finished, or did you not give up on it, but did you have to stop it straight away and then sort of figure out what you were going to do? Like, walk us through your initial reaction to that diagnosis.
The actual diagnosis scared me quite harshly because obviously it's an old person disease.
Yep.
It was thinking of like, what's my future going to be like? I'm only 18. I have at least 80 years to go of my life, 70 years of my life. What's that going to be like? So it sent my mind into a bit of a spiral like that. And obviously my ego, I wanted to be as best as I could. Doctors like that always tell you that you can be medically played. There's people like that with, issues like that in the world. So I went onto a deep dive on the internet about players that have it. Can they play? How high they can play? And obviously there's a few that have it. But yeah, my ego and cockiness, I still wanted to be 100% because what am I going to let a little disease affect me? Until later in line, I actually knew at the end of the day, it does control me quite harshly. It's about what I can do with it.
Episode of the Jacked Philosopher is brought to you by Metamorph Physique, our coaching and mentorship program for men ready to transform their body, mindset, and life. We know what it feels to be stuck, overweight, unmotivated, undisciplined. That's where we started. And that is why we created a program that goes beyond training plans and diets. We rebuild daily structure, discipline, and the confidence that comes from building a physique that you're proud of. If you're ready to stop wasting time and finally take control, head to metamorphphysique.com or DM us on Instagram at George_metamorph or Nick_metamorph to transform your body and transform your life.
So it's about managing symptoms as opposed to finding a cure. And I guess, so from that process, right, you couldn't really play soccer anymore. You chose not to because obviously you weren't able to perform to your ability. What did life look like after that for you? Because obviously, you had put all your eggs in that one basket, right? Which again, any normal person who's got such a high level of commitment to anything would. It was funny, we were talking to Ivy last week, he had the same thing with basketball, right? He had put all his eggs in that basket. It was very good on the way to essentially, potentially playing in the NBA and whatnot. So what happened after that? What did you...
It's almost like your whole identity gets stripped.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, what were you feeling?
Yeah, wow. So that's probably when I'd say version 2 comes. So that's when I remodel myself, I rebrand myself, I become a different person. I'm no longer, I'm still a part of James, but I am no longer that James. So, but obviously that life is still part of my life. I can never lose who I am. It's obviously, I just get an updated version. So it's like 2.0. So then that's when it transitions more into the gym type of stuff. Because I wanted to be a physio coming out of school. That was my dream. Then I came up to Sydney and I was in a sports school. So I was under Sydney FC. So I still had that passion, but obviously managing arthritis, therefore the gym slowly had to creep in. I was working with an exercise physiologist, EP, Tom at Miranda, and then obviously gym had to become a manageable thing because that's something you have to do with arthritis. It eats away at your muscle. You need to stay very active. And obviously the gym is the best thing to keep your muscle at the end of the day. So that's where the actual drive home for gym can come, officially took off there because gym's been a whole part of my life. But that's when it's like the love for it really started to creep out. And that's where it took higher placing than football now. Here I am 5 years later.
That's
a full gym person.
Yeah. It's funny how the gym brings people from all walks of life together, especially people that have gone through shit or adversity or, some sort of, whatever it is, some sort of mishap in life that's caused them to completely change their course of direction. And, we're similar in that too. I always enjoyed training when I was young, but I never had it as my number one priority or the thing that I let the rest of my life sort of feed off. Whereas once you figure out how to make that transition and you say, okay, even though you might not want to be a bodybuilder, right, to the people that aren't bodybuilders, having your training as a base, as a standard that then you can essentially level off the rest of your day with, or you can feed off into the rest of your day, with that training being that initial structure, that base, I think that's probably the most important decision a person can make, or the most important priority switch a person can make, because the discipline really outlays to every single other area of life. But it has to be there as a priority. You can't just be like, yeah, I'm a gym goer, but you're not really there to, to train.
And I think I resonate with that a little bit, because I remember thinking, all right, what is it that I want to do with my life? Because I went to uni and I was studying history and I was planning to go to law. But at the end of the day, once I got into law, I was like, I don't see myself being a lawyer. I don't see myself going down that route. And when I was reflecting and thinking about, what I actually enjoy, the one thing that's been consistent since I was 14, 15 was no matter what I was doing, I was going to the gym. And I think that's what kind of drew me to bodybuilding, because, that's the one thing that I've kept consistent almost my whole life. Obviously, it comes and goes in different waves, especially when you're younger. But yeah, that was the sort of the anchor. But I want to get back to sort of that building James 2.0. What was that sort of process in your head? Like, what did you actually have to do in order to step into a new identity?
Well, I think the most important thing to understand is you can't change the past. That's who I am. That's the cards I've been dealt. But you know what? That's going to dictate my future. So mentally, I had to accept I've got something. I can't just push it off as something lighthearted. It is a serious disease. It affects my life. It will affect my life for my whole life. So the first thing to come to do is just to accept it.
Was that a difficult concept to sort of get your head around? Because obviously when you're young, you think you're invincible. You think, oh, it won't happen to me. When it did happen to you, was that something that you sort of had to come to terms with internally? Yeah,
so I don't think even to this day I've fully accepted it, because obviously I think I'm big and end all. But yeah, I really had to just sit down and just be quite realistic. It's those few times that you have to be really real. And it takes a lot for anyone to just seriously think I can't be silly, I can't be stupid, I can't be egotistical. This is about as serious as it comes. Now, this is going to be my foundation. This is going to control everything a part of my life. And it really takes a lot out of you mentally to understand that, I'm not normal, but that's okay. No one's normal.
Yep.
And just to accept that, this can make me who I am, and I can actually use it to my use. Not knowing that, I'd use it as part of my coaching, but back then it was just something, this can be like a badge of honor. I can use it as a bit of suffering. I've pushed through it. I've been to the depths of hell and stuff like that mentally. So I had to kind of flip it, even to this day, wear it as a badge of honor and be pride that, the Lord has tested me. I've pushed through it. Men are meant to suffer. It's just going to make me a better human being, because, I've experienced something that most people haven't. So it's a really good chance to share, to get people to understand if you're going through something like that, there is an end light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It just may take months, years, not days.
That's what I think is the most important thing to acknowledge. And the fact that you were so young, by the way, hats off to you, bro, because it's a very mature thing to be able to have that level of self-awareness and reflection at such a young age, to actually be able to sit in your thoughts and say, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt. Now I can either go this way about it and just, pour myself into this deep depression that I'll never get out of, which obviously we do to an extent, because it is a really shit circumstance and we are allowed to feel our feelings. But when you start acting on those feelings, that's when we start to see, problems occur, and then, that sort of discourse start to take place. Whereas you haven't done that, you acknowledge this is what happened. Obviously, yes, the mindset would have been in a state of depression for a while, which is expected, but the actual process in which you rebuilt yourself is extremely important and significant. And that's what I think is the most important thing about anyone that goes through any adversity, any trauma, any diagnosis, because that's when, as you said, men are really tested. And this is where in modern society, I see such a big issue where men do get presented with these situations, whether it's in the form of a diagnosis, whether it's in the form of, something else. I'll bring up a very recent example for myself, actually. So I just recently lost my job. I had a government job. I was working full time, and it came, with the good super, all the benefits, all that, yada, that they market to be, the best thing in the world. Anyway, it was never my intention to stay there full time forever. But if I'm going to be honest, I got comfortable, right? Cruisy salary, the work's easy. I can work on my coaching business on the side too. I never really had the push to leave, right? But then I was presented with a situation where, they weren't happy with some of the conditions of my employment outside of the government. It didn't align with their, with their objectives and whatnot. So I was given an ultimatum: either stop your fitness coaching business on the side, or you'll be subject to code of conducts. You'll be stripped of your security clearance, all that stuff. For me, it was a no-brainer. It's like, I'm not going to, coaching is my passion. It's what I love. But I realized to myself in that moment, if I hadn't gone through these moments of self-reflection or the shit that I've gone through in the past, that being presented with a situation like that, I would have overreacted and lost my shit over it. Because, you're losing your job, you're losing your security, your job security. And you can either go one of two ways. You can be like, just fuck everything. I'm just going to go and, gamble or drink or just, piss my sorrows away. Or you can be like, okay, this is the situation I'm presented with. I can either come up with a solution, or I can gloat and, play the woe to me card and, just feel sorry for myself. And for you to do that at that age, I think is really good. It's fantastic. And it is something that I think needs to be solidified in today's society, that it's okay to be presented with bad cards, right? Like, it's not the end of the world, because what is in your control is still, up to you. That's going to determine what quality of life you do choose to live.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think obviously strategy comes into play as well. So, I mean, you can win with a really bad hand. It's just how you play those cards. And
Correct.
One of the ways that you establish that strategy is by accepting, okay, I have these cards that were dealt to me. I can't control that, but I can control the outcome based off my strategy. And you're obviously going to make mistakes. Obviously, at times it's going to feel overwhelming and it's going to feel like the whole world's crashing down. But as you build that mental fortitude as a result of the cards you've been dealt, then one day you realize that it's actually a blessing rather than a curse. And I mean, I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Yep.
I'm not sure where you guys are.
Yeah,
on
absolutely. I mean, look, this is the way I think of it, James. Like, from what you've told us about your story so far, imagine that diagnosis had never taken place. Like, yeah, you might have either turned into a professional footballer, as you always wanted, but you would have never got to experience James the bodybuilder, James getting up on stage, James the coach helping other people with their gut issues, and, everything that you've been able to turn yourself into, which we'll get into, right? That's a whole nother sort of tree of life that has just sprouted out of something that never existed, and it wouldn't have if it wasn't for that diagnosis. And it's, if anything, it's given you the opportunity to now help other people who might be dealing with the same thing, just like what we went through helped us, be able to help other people in what we know, through our own life experiences. And the sad truth is, I think we have to go through shit in order for that realization to occur. It's just, it comes in many different waves and forms. That's, whether it's, like I said, a diagnosis, an adversity, whatever the case, self-induced, just something stupid that you've just, gone through. It's a very important and necessary realization as a man that you have to go through in life. And it's how you react to it that obviously determine what's going to come of that situation. So you've gone and fallen in love with the gym. It's always been a part of your life. Now, obviously, we know that you're a competitive bodybuilder now. You compete with the IFBB and you're also an online coach. How did that transition, after that James 2.0 was slowly starting to get rebuilt, when you knew what your situation was, you had the passion from the gym, where did bodybuilding come into it? And when did that first sort of spark get lit for you to know, okay, I want to get shredded and get up on stage now?
Originally, it's from my dad. My dad is everything to me. He's my role model. He's my idol.
Awesome.
So dad's always been around bodybuilding. He's got those magazines, those old rusty things for 10 cents. So I've grown up always knowing that bodybuilding is a real thing. Dad's idol is Lee Priest, an Australian bodybuilder. He took photos of him competing, stuff like that. So dad is really around it. But for me to personally do it is because I got a job at the supplement shop, Booty and Buff, where I met Jonathan Dixon. Now, Jono to me was my first coach. He's the person that really, said you have to bring out some of this potential. So he's competed. He's played third in Australia, all like that. So I was just speaking to him about, something, I could be doing stuff like this. I've got an okay physique. I'd like to give it a try. And he was nice enough to offer free coaching.
Awesome.
He said he'll do the whole prep for me for free because he can see the passion. He can see the drive in me. It's like a young version of him. So God bless to him. He did it all out of his own time, running a $1 million shop. But it's just because he saw the passion in me. But then I competed. That was my first time back in 2023. Yeah.
That was my first time too.
Yeah, excellent. And
you guys stepped on stage
together. Yeah.
You did season A, didn't you? Or did you?
I did season A.
I did season C. Yeah.
Same year. Close enough.
That's it.
Yeah. So it was thanks to Dixon that, he allowed me to do that. He opened that pathway for me, unbeknownst to me that, that was my first job up here, that he opened up this can of worms. So he was the angel that I needed back then.
Awesome. That's really cool, bro. How did you find the prep? Obviously, it's nothing like you'd ever done before, but did you find that the skills and the discipline that you built up through all that, all that time with the consistency with the soccer training and whatnot helped you apply that same skill set to, the demanding things that prep requires?
I think it does, but as you boys know, I think prep, especially, is a whole nother level. You cannot prepare for it. You boys are a lot more different than me. You've lost a lot of weight where I've become the opposite. I've gone from skinny upwards. So you guys understand how hard it is, so you have that aspect, which I think is astronomical. Hats off to you guys. But I think, yes, but no, I think maybe about 25, 50%. Because then you're literally fighting homeostasis. You can probably do the first 5-10 kilos. Yeah, that's fine. That's that's easy. But it's from there on. It's week 10 onwards where you have to holy shit.
It's a real dig after that. And it's funny because people say with every year, with every prep, it gets easier. But say this is the hardest prep, the one that I just went through that I've ever done. I've only done 2, but I think that although the process might become more recognizable or you get more used to the process, I don't think it makes it easier, because if you're improving every time and you're reaching new levels of condition every time, you're getting more fatigued every time. You're getting more peeled every time. It's like, for people to have lines, I had lines on my glutes for the first time ever in my entire life this prep. And I'll tell you what, it was not fun getting them. It's like
you can't sit down.
Yeah, it's pretty cooked, man. But it was exciting at the same time. But yeah, to get to that level of body fat, which I know I could have been leaner. The more muscle we put on, obviously, the more we diet down, the more leaner we'll get. That's just the process of prepping over years and years. But yeah, reaching those new levels of condition with every prep, with every dieting phase, it's extremely difficult. And it's not just physically, it's the mental aspect, which I think most people can't prepare for. That's where most people, like you said, they'll give up 10 weeks in, 12 weeks in, when you really start to get flat, when you really start to feel your glycogen just completely disappear after you've done your training session. You still got the whole day ahead of you, you're just cooked. It's, I agree.
I think, what you said, so I had lost a lot of weight in the past. So I'd lost 20 kilos plus, but being a naive young buck doing my first bodybuilding prep, I had absolutely no idea what that last little bit would feel like. And I thought I had it in the bag. And then I got to there about 6 weeks out and I was I did not want anyone to speak to me. I did not want, I didn't crave anything. I just needed more of what I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I didn't deal with any craving. I didn't even have hunger pains. But I just had no energy. And that was the hardest bit because it's very emasculating as well. Like you can feel that you have low test.
Mm-hmm.
You can feel that, you just don't have the drive or will to do anything except for train, eat, and sleep. And I'm grateful that I experienced that because you hear the stories, but unless you do it yourself, you really have no idea what it feels like.
How did you find that affected your arthritis when you got to those really lean points of your prep? Did you find that it got worse or it aggravated it, or did you use supplements or peptides to kind of help managing that sort of pain? Or what did that look like for you going through a prep specifically with managing, obviously, having your rheumatoid arthritis?
I don't think I can remember like dictating prep and stuff like that. Obviously, I've been with two very good coaches that have a basic of understanding of how body works, inflammatory system works. So they did their best to keep all inflammation as low as humanly possible through foods, supplements like that, low stress. But I don't remember it ever like purely stopping me. I think that's the type of times where my mind was actually stronger than my body. So I thought, like my parents used to say, you're committing to it. You paid for it, you finish it.
Yep.
Whether if you're fat and ugly, but you're still on stage, or you win. Yeah. You get on that stage regardless at the end of the day. You make sure that you complete this thing. So I don't remember it solely stopping me. Obviously, it was challenging at times. I had to really manage my loads. And that's where I think it's really important for people to place their trust in someone that has that experience. And also, or just has a basic understanding of how human functions work. Especially when you suffer with diseases and stuff like that. I think it's even more important to place trust in someone, because in preps and stuff like that, you can do more harm than good.
Yeah, of course.
Especially dealing with drugs or even doing it as natty. You're fighting everything in your body. You are doing the unattainable. So that's why I think it's really important for people to take, if you're going to commit to it, do it properly and do it seriously. Invest properly. Don't let a friend do it. Do someone that you trust. So if you do have a problem, they're not going to just ignore you or back you off. They're actually going to be like, okay, what can we do now?
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why it's so important to actually have, like you said, a trustworthy coach who knows their way around the human body, because as we all know, us being in the industry, there's so many coaches out there, but how many of them will actually know how to manage symptoms of really bad GI stress or indigestive issues, or someone that might have SIBO, or, just any number of things that can go wrong medically with the body that are typically outside of our sort of, field of scope in a sense. However, in saying that, if you're a coach who actually is passionate about coaching, you should roughly know these things, within the human body, even though it technically isn't in your Cert 3, Cert 4 that you learn in, in your PT. But if you're coaching bodybuilding, what does bodybuilding entail? It entails digestion, right? Probably first and foremost, because if you're not digesting your food properly, if you're not having the right sources of food that agree with your body, regardless of what data says, I was actually just having this discussion with my coach recently. Shout out to Flex Coach George with Flex Success. I actually asked if we could trial running high fats for this upcoming off season. I think, we were talking about this with George Adams a while back, and he said to me, he said, in my latest check-in, he said, look, the data says one thing, but you're telling me that your body says another, right? Because I told him, I said, my digestion has been fantastic. My stools have been really consistent. Sorry for the TMI guys, but, everything has been very well, very good with my digestion on being on, higher fats. And he said, if digestion is optimal and if you're feeling good, it doesn't matter what the data says, you're going to get more progress knowing that your body's functioning properly, as opposed to you being lethargic and bloated, smashing 1,000 grams of carbs on 40 grams of fat, So even though glycogen stores might be full and, according to the research, you might be able to push harder in the gym, on the flip side, if you're not digesting that food properly and you'll get into the gym lethargic and bloated because you're on so many carbs, then your performance will be hindered in that workout, and so will your recovery. So having someone in your corner, like you said, that firstly cares about their job, loves what they do, and at the same time is educated both with common sense, which is not common at all now, and knowing about the human body, and being able to display that communication with the client is paramount to essentially that client having success. And
I think there's different levels to it. You mentioned, obviously, coaching is a very saturated industry these days.
It's oversaturated.
But there are different levels to it. There's the coaches that treat the human body like a machine, where it's like, okay, you eat X amount, this will happen. In reality, though, the human body is not a machine. It's a very complex system, or a very complex sort of compilation of different systems that work together. And if one thing goes wrong, well, you got to figure it out, because that's going to impact the rest of the systems.
that's right.
So I do think it is very, very important to actually have an understanding of the different systems of the human body, because at the end of the day, the people that come to you as clients, they've got problems. Like, otherwise they wouldn't be fat, or they wouldn't be, overly skinny.
No.
They have problems. They have issues. Now, on the performance aspect of it, obviously it's a bit of a different story, but regardless, you do need to know everything about the human body in order to get the best result out of your clients and make the journey, as easy as possible for them. And then, obviously if you change their lives, like we're in the business of changing lives. If you do that, then not only are you helping them, you're helping yourself as a businessman, because, they're going to recommend you to or their friends, family, and other people that have these issues, because you know your shit, you know how to fix them. Now you specialized a little bit in gut
health.
Health, yeah. So what drew you to that?
Oh, so that's a great topic, and we'll link it back to arthritis. So this year I was diagnosed with my second case of it. So I now have it in my right hip as well, at a worse percentage. So it's about 2% worse.
Double.
Yeah. So this year is probably one of my lowest years, one of my most challenging years, but also one of my most mentally succeeding fortitude years. So this year, obviously, I was having some pain at the beginning of the year. I haven't done any preps or stuff like that. Obviously wanted to have a bit of a growth season, some time away from it. I thought, I'm a young man.
Yep.
I need to get my money up first. Prepping that stuff is a luxury. So the more income I have, the better preps I can do.
It's an investment too.
Stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. So again, I was having some pains at the beginning of the year. I thought it was, just a little tear or something again. I should have been more smarter and know the signs, because the signs were exactly the same year ago. But I thought in the back of my head, there's no way that I can be dealt the same card again. Like, why me again?
Yep.
So I did all the peptides. I was seeing, my friends that are physios doing these exercises. And then it got to a point that I was in so much pain again. And I'm still trying to run a business. I'm on the floor every day. So I'm not on my ass. So I've not let it hold me back. But it got to a point where I said, enough is enough. I need to do something about it. So I booked an appointment with my specialist. We got all these blood tests done and stuff like that. We got an MRI again, and it's great. I've got it again, but I now have it like in my SI joint, a really little bit in my tailbone. So I get back pain now, which is just unbearable. So those two, obviously got hit with those two cards this year. So I thought, you know what I can do? I'm going to master arthritis. I'm going to learn everything about it. So I become a master of myself and my own diseases. And what's the best thing I can do for myself is gut health. If I can optimize my gut health, I can be invincible. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to invest in, online courses. I'm going to invest in my own self. I'm going to learn everything about the gut that you humanly can. And then, therefore, I started to get better with medication, praise the Lord for all that stuff. Yep. I'm feeling a lot better and stuff like that. So then, you know what? I'm healing myself. I'm posting it online. I started to get, people inquiring about their gut health. They have issues, stuff like that. What did I do? I thought, you know what? With the boys' group chat, speaking to JP and all that, he said, you really need to niche in. Why don't you niche in about this? You're learning about it already, so you're not going out and doing something else. I thought, you know what? This is an untapped market. It's obviously a very difficult market because, as you boys said, everyone is different.
Yep.
Even in families, no one is the same.
A lot of diagnostics involved, but if you're passionate about it, we get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to put all my eggs in this one basket, and praise the Lord, it is now the driver of my business.
Awesome. That's really cool, man.
Sorry to interrupt, but so the connection between arthritis and gut health, is that inflammation in those markers?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So the more inflamed my gut is, the more it inflames my whole system.
Yep.
Because arthritis is an autoimmune disease, so it's just an inflammatory disease. So it's B cells, T cells. They think my ligaments are a foreign substance. So the best way that the body can do is protect itself. So what it does is T cells and that release, what they call soldiers, which is just inflammation. So it attacks their system. So therefore it releases a inflammatory signaling to my brain, and then it inflames up. So if I can keep the gut health, for me is probably one of my biggest aspects, as well as medication. So if I can at least knock like 70% off, 75% off, it will be manageable. And that's all I need in life is manageable. I don't need perfection. I don't need remission. I just need manageable.
Yeah. What does your gut health protocol look like to you? So walk us through a bit of what your diet looks like. Have you had to eliminate certain foods that cause, inflammation? So for example, say high FODMAP vegetables or things that typically, won't really sit well, with your body. Walk us through how you've had to optimize and change your diet to be able to manage those symptoms.
Yeah, so I haven't luckily had to go to the full FODMAP.
Yep.
So what I did was I firstly had to look at what am I eating? So that entailed because obviously I'm pretty good at tracking it, but I mean really tracking it, getting on chronometer, looking at every micronutrient possible. Yep. So therefore I thought, you know what? I'm high in sodium, low in potassium. There's number one. Potassium is so, such an underestimated, like, it's a
you need to have that balance.
topic.
You need to have that balance. That's why it's funny. People laugh at me because I always post my coconut water on my story when I train. It's always on the machine. It's like, oh, why are you drinking coconut water? It's like, mate, do you know how much potassium is in this thing? It's like, it's a really good thing, for, like I said, potassium, sodium balance, natural electrolytes, and it's something that people just don't even think about, but it's so important.
Yeah, and I got that from one of the Australian coaches, Coach Adam, who's a bit, how's your hat going? But he's really
Adam
O'Mackey.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
yep.
But he's really, besides the person, that bloke is so knowledgeable, and he's so big at driving home potassium as, a main driver for cells, everything like that.
Yep.
So I thought, that's good. All right, what can I do there? So now I'm eating more potatoes. I'm having potassium salts. I'm having tomato paste, stuff like that. Coconut water I'm drinking. It's really cheap, $2 a bottle. Tastes amazing.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Tastes sick. Yeah.
It's full of electrolytes and you need all that. So therefore, then I went a little bit more deep into, like probiotics, prebiotics, stuff like that, foods like that. But I find with things like probiotics, a lot of brands do a very broad spectrum of stuff where if you speak to people that have suffered, or, this is where I went to a bit more people that actually deal with gut health to ask them for health and advice, because I understand it's out of my scope.
Yep.
They said you need to find a particular strain and stuff like that. So therefore that's more research in what mechanism does this strain do for this.
Yeah.
So
like your specific probiotics, like, lactobacillus, bulgaricus, and, things like that.
Yeah.
They're different. Yeah. I get you.
Yeah. So, I've got a particular one because, it works worth for me. It's, every second day for a month. I did every day. I just take it pre-bed because then it's in my system overnight. It's cooling. Yep. It can do the cleanup work.
Is that specifically for producing positive gut microbiome bacteria?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I found that I needed a lot more of that.
Okay.
Because then obviously that's a bit more of a cleanup. It deals with inflammation. It excels everything too. And stuff like that there. I looked into more supplement stuff like that, like L-glutamine for leaky gut, stuff like that. And now I'm trying to it's almost like a trial and error thing. So I try foods, give it a week or two. It's always a 2-week rule. You got to try a food for 2 weeks.
Yep.
If it doesn't sit well, all right, that's eliminated. So I found that even I'm just on really low food. So the first thing I should have said that is really low calories.
Okay.
So strip back the calories. Obviously that meant losing weight, which is good for my joints and my inflammation. So get back to more of a manageable body weight not an obese body weight, because I was a little bit too heavy because I was chasing the scale, not the actual mass. So now, lose 5 or 6 kilos, get in a better position. And then just trying to find manageable foods. So eating really good, clean, healthy foods. The chicken from Metro, because I know Manny's, there's no stuff in it. It's really clean. It's really healthy. Trying to stay away from processed foods that are high for inflammation. Stuff like that. Having digestive enzymes, therefore absorption, utilization is a lot better as well. So I'm just trying to find what works for me and sticking to it. And praise the Lord, I've finally got into a plan where I'm getting better. I'm seeing progress.
Awesome.
But yeah, stripping it back really from root one and breaking every food down, which is tiring. It's boring because you're weighing food, you're looking at an app all the time, you're not eating out with friends and stuff like that. So it's like a semi-prep, but I have to do it for my information. I have to do it for the rest of my life.
Well, it's a necessary part of the process. And as you said, just sort of knocking it on its head and being like, these are the cards I've been dealt. At least I know now. So then you only have to do all that once, that whole trial period, and then you're like, awesome, okay, I can eat chicken breast, I can eat this, I can eat that, I can't eat this. And then at least it gives you a bit of a clear pathway as to, what you have to do. And then as you said, from there it's just managing and staying on top of it, which is, really, really cool, bro. Like I said, the fact that what you are doing, even though it's hard, it's enabling you to continue pursuing your passion in bodybuilding,
Absolutely.
Which at the end of the day is what drives you to continue to turn up and be like, you know what? Yes, this is a pain in the ass, but I'm able to do what I love as a result of it, And I find that when we are presented with these situations, whatever it is, as long as it enables us to continue doing what we love, I think that we're not going to stop regardless. And having that, the basis for that is initially having that passion, having that spark and being like, I know now what I identify with. I know now what I love. And no matter what comes my way, I will find a way. I will find a solution to, optimize whatever cards I'm given to be able to allow me to pursue my passion in bodybuilding, in coaching, in whatever the case may be. So, it's good as long as that fire stays there and we remember the reasons why we do it. I don't think anything's going to be able to stop you, bro, which is, fantastic. So even if you get a third diagnosis, God forbid, but you will find a way around it because you've proven that you've shown the mental fortitude, you had the maturity from a very young age, and you've got that competitive mindset and that stoic mindset to be able to actually lean into the solution side of things and be like, okay, what can I do about it? What can I fix? And it's a credit to you, bro. So well done.
Well, I want to ask a little bit about that. So obviously you've gone through some pretty intense suffering and I guess you've had a bit of a difficult journey in bodybuilding, but you're still turning up, still lifting, still coaching. And I think you're planning on returning to the stage as well in 2027?
Yeah, if everything goes right, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you get flare-ups or when something kind of knocks you back, like this year with the second diagnosis, what keeps you going? What keeps you motivated?
It's just to get where I am. It's at the end of the day, like I said, boys, every man deserves a little bit of suffering. It's where you find your true self.
Yep.
So it's just about understanding that everyone has a problem. No one really wants to hear about it. If they do, that's fantastic, but you don't know what anyone is going through. So treat everyone kind. They may have a smile on their face, but they may have a frown inside them. So it's just about getting where I want, why I want. It's about, I may not get where I want, but as long as I end up somewhere around there, that's at the end of the day, that's fantastic. So I may not get on stage. You know what? I may help someone get on stage. And that's 90% of the journey done. That's 0% of the suffering. And their win is my win. So it's about finding where can I get as close as I get that will satisfy me as possible.
It's a really good mindset to have. I've actually never heard of it being put that way. Wow.
Yeah, it's something different. But at the end of the day, you got to have a goal.
Yep.
Amanda has a no goal is useless. They don't do anything in society. You got to have a goal, whether it's something small like getting up, completing a task, or you know what, like you boys have, losing 50 kilos, even just losing 5 kilos is fantastic. You got to have a goal that's going to drive you to wake up out of bed every day.
Yeah.
Bed is for sleeping. You don't sit in it longer than you sleep. You got to have a reason to get up and, you know what? I'm going to tackle the day ahead. That's what I said. As long as you end up somewhere near where you want to be and you're happy, it's close. That's a win.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned your dad and then your coach as well, obviously being role models, being sort of the epitome of what it means to be men. How important is it to have figures like that around you?
I think it's the be and end all. As we can see, sometimes as sad as it's, you can see people where they haven't grown up with that father figure. You know, obviously they're as good as they can be, but I think a father is the most important person and the most difficult role you can have in life. You know, everyone can be a parent, but not everyone can be a father. I think it takes a very special person to be a father, especially a father that you want to be like. So growing up, I can talk about my dad for hours. Growing up, I find that as young men, we always demonize our father, especially if our father is someone that's very strict, you know, very hard on us. You know, my dad lost his dad at 13, so he really, you know, takes the role of fathership really seriously. My dad is probably the most hardest person on me, but as I've grown up, I also understand that he's the most happiest person, but it's always behind closed doors. Like, he will push me, but you know what? He'll speak very highly of me to other people. So I think it's that as well. I think with that, it's like an honor roll. So having those people, it's a guidance system. It's an epitaphy to look at. That's what I mean. I think fatherhood is something really important. But going back to what I said, you demonize as your father growing up, but it's not till you become a man you actually understand why your father has done stuff like this. And then as you become older, you actually want to be your father. So it's an epitaphy to about you're 18 or you hit adulthood. You know what? My dad's actually right. And you know what? I want to be like him. And I think that's what a father is. Someone you can look up to.
You know, it's funny that, like, what you're saying now, you resonate. It's given me flashbacks because our dad, like, you know, and I've given him so much shit over the years, and like what you're saying now just makes me regret every bit of it. Not in the sense of disrespect, but it's like in the sense that, you know, like my dad's a little bit overweight, right? Dad's a little bit overweight. You know, we've been trying to, because I really care about his health, and you know, he's done nothing but care for us and provide everything for us. Like, you know, he's just a teacher, right? But he's done everything in his power, both him and mum, you know, to make sure that we've always had everything we've ever needed. They sacrificed a lot to send me to a private school so I could pursue rugby and play rugby. And all the lessons that he taught us as well, you know, very similar to you, bro. Like, our dad was quite strict on us when we were young, you know, quite strict. Even now, look, if I swear at the dinner table, he'll lose it at me, but I can't help myself. But it's funny. At that time, as you said, you know, we think, especially as kids, you know, why are you so hard on me? You know, I don't see other kids' parents, you know, being like that and whatnot. But it's only now that we're adults and we realize these morals and these values that don't exist in modern society that we were forced and we were bred into, fuck, they make you into the man that you turn into. Like, they really shape you into someone who is able to, firstly, acknowledge, you know, being grateful. You know, just being grateful for whatever it is that has come our way, showing kindness to others as well, acknowledging people as human beings, like you said, because you don't know what anyone's going through. So just as a basis, being kind to one another, showing respect to one another, regardless of who they are. These are things that our fathers taught us, you know. And if it wasn't for father figures in our life, and you know, you're right, mankind would be doomed. But those values, right? Where are they today? Like, first of all, where do they come from? Where do you think those values come from? Is it from God? Because I'm assuming, you know, obviously you've brought up God, you know, many times. We're also religious, we're Christian. Do you think that these are specific Christian values that have been passed down, you know, through the generations of your family? Like, you know, walk us through a bit about that. Like, how did you grow up in terms of, you know, a Christian faith background and whatnot, and how has that impacted your life in terms of your morals and your values?
Yeah, so I think that it does come from back then. So, you know, churches every Sunday, you're dressed up. There's nothing else happens on a Sunday. You as a child to about I left home. You go to church. That is a
We were
non-negotiable.
the same.
As a parent, until you leave this household, you follow our rules, and that's church on a Sunday.
Yep.
You can have that choice when you leave the house.
Mm.
So going there, but I also believe that we're in such a big world that there has to be someone above.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you don't think, there's got to be something above. And I think it's really good to have that religious thing as someone you can talk to. I think praying is really a really good understanding to think for a time, because when you pray, you think out loud. I like to talk out loud because it makes you think a lot harder.
Yeah, we're the same. Yep, I am. Yep.
Yeah, so I think it makes you, therefore, you can have the opportunity to analyze everything, and it gives you a different perspective. So you may not believe, in a higher being, but even just speaking to someone above, I think can really, get your mindset to go a different way, because you're speaking out loud. And when you speak out loud, you hear yourself from a different perspective.
Yep.
So it's like someone is looking down on you, giving you the answers because you're speaking up to him.
I think it's the ultimate form of A, meditation, and B, self-reflection, because at times you really don't know what you want or what's good for you until you project that out. Yeah. And I think it is very, very important in terms of where our morals and values have come from. Whether you're religious or not, you cannot deny that the way Western society was built was through Christianity, and those morals and values shaped the laws that we have today. So you can try and separate church and state as much as you want. That's where it all came from. That's where it all started.
Well, look at the Ten Commandments.
Well, yeah. And
that was before Jesus,
Yeah. Well, that was essentially the backbone of society. And now that they're trying to move away from that, and we see, we see more and more fatherless homes, this is where, society goes to shit, because they've lost the importance of the role of the father. And then they've gone and turned their back on the ultimate father, who is God. So, yeah, whichever way you see it, I don't care if you're atheist, you have to admit that these values were built by Christian and Jewish values. That's how society was built. And now that we're moving away from it, well, we can see how bastardized society is.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And so we had spoken about your father and having the important father figure there. Is that a goal of yours in the future as well, to become like your dad, to raise a family?
I think so. If I can be 1% of the man he is, I think I've done a really good job.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think being a father is such a unique role. I don't think everyone can be a father. I think it takes a very, very special person to be a father. Whether I'm honorary, like deserve that role, time will tell. But if I can at least be 1% of the man that he is, I think I've done a really good job. And I think he'd be proud of me that, I'm coming after him.
What do you think are the qualities that separate just parents from fathers?
I think that's a really great question. I think a father has to be very harsh. I do not think they can be a best friend. I think they can be a friend, but not a best friend. They have to understand that they are not going to be liked. They're going to be very resented for. And it takes really a strong person to understand that, I'm not going to be liked. But at the end of the day, it will take time. So I think it takes a very strong mentitude. It takes a strong person to hold a family down as well. And being the father, you are the pinnacle of that family. Everyone relies on you. The world revolves around you. You are everyone's problem solver. You are the bread maker. You are everything. So you have a lot of burden. You don't have many people to go to, especially as a male with mental health. You have literally no one to go to. So you've got to solve your own problems and other people's problems. And you've got to be a role model. So you've got to uphold yourself to a higher standard of everyone else. So I think as a parent, parents can be fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not demonizing parents. But if we're just breaking down a single father, it takes a very, very special man. Like I said, everyone can be a parent, but not everyone can be a father.
I love how you hold it to such a high standard, bro, because it's funny. people our age don't even think about that as like the next stage of life, but it's something that's been scaring me. Not scaring me, but I mean, that's our ultimate goal, right? Like, and especially growing up in a Christian household, like, the literally for me, regardless of what happens in bodybuilding or business, like, I want to have my son or daughter running around, like, waiting to greet me when I get home from work, whatever it is that I'm doing, just that family unit is the most important thing in my life, and Nick's life too. It's the ultimate goal. But at the same time, the way you just broke it down, it's so true because it is the ultimate challenge. And that's where we will be really tested. But another thing that I think, which is why I personally think, you will be a good father one day, James, if God gives you the grace to be able to do that. Because all these tests that you have already foregone and all these adversities, I think they prepare us for that ultimate moment. Because like you said, the same things that we have to carry as a father, all those burdens, the role model aspect, being a leader, these are the same qualities that we build in the background when we go through these adversities, these, various, diagnosis of, of whatever it is. Mm-hmm. In the background, you're building that resilience that is going to come out when you become a father. In the background, you're building that skill set that's going to be required to tell your kids no, because you've had to say no to yourself, right? Over so many things. And that's why I think, back to what Nick said as well, everything happens for a reason. If we're going to be realistic about it and, really, go about the natural progression of what God wants from us as male species, as human beings, is to progress to that level of fatherhood, right, for the right people. But first of all, we have to have him centered in our life because that's, the people that believe that is the natural, rise of progression, right? The natural goal of a human being, to reproduce, to do everything through the eyes of God and to eventually, lead on the future generations. But all these challenges and adversities are put in place, I think, for the sole purpose to help us prepare. Yes, it's still going to be an extremely challenging thing because we will be given new tests and whatnot. But if we haven't had these adversities growing up as young, whatever, forms they come in, that's what makes it even harder. Even more so if you spend the majority of your youth and your life avoiding challenges, right, and avoiding any form of adversity, not having a reason to get up out of bed, like you said, and saying, I want to go and attack the day, just being a lazy slob and, doing the bare minimum. How do you expect to take on the challenge of being a parent, let alone a father, then,
And it all comes back to you need to be able to conquer yourself, conquer your passions, conquer your, the things that are holding you back. And then from there, that's where you can grow. That's where you can have a successful family. That's where you can have a successful career. That's where you become strong, fit, healthy. That's essentially what your story is. It's about self-mastery, conquering yourself so that you can move on and move forward and continue progressing.
So what are the plans for future James? You're in that 2.0. You've got your niche in your gut health specialization now. You know what you want to do. You're pretty set in your routine. What's the future looking like for you? Obviously, we said bodybuilding 2027 is a potential. We might be on stage together then. But what else do you have? That you are. What's your next goal?
My next goal is to become financially stable with my online
business,
to be that as a sole driver. I do love my supplement job. That will always stay in there. I can be very grateful. But yes, I'd like to be the pinnacle of gut health specialists, as well as, like prep, stuff like that. But I want to be the known name. The first thing that comes out of people's mouth. I want to be the pinnacle of that. That's my dream, is to help as many people with the diseases as humanly possible.
I love that.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
I've got one last question. Normally with every guest, we ask them to give advice to the young people, to the next generation. But for you, I want to do something a little bit different. If you could speak to James 1.0, the 14-year-old version of yourself, in pain, confused, and wanting to be normal, what would you tell him?
Great question. I firstly probably have to say that I'm a very big believer that emotions are okay. A lot of men try to hide their emotions. I believe that crying, stuff like that, is very normal and very helpful. So I probably have to tell him it's okay to be scared. is probably the first thing I have to say, because, you know, you're very nervous when you're in an unknown situation, alone, stuff like that. And just to understand that time creates power, where power creates who you are. So like we've been saying, this whole identity of suffering creates a person. I think it's just, we'll have to tell them it's okay to be scared. If I had to say one thing, it's okay to be scared. And you will get there. It just takes time. But, you know, along that route, you'll meet everyone that will become who you are and drive you where you want to be.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Very, very good message. So at the end of the day, as you said, time. It's going to be the ultimate deciding factor of when you will get to your goal, but you have to spend long enough in there to get the results. Like you said, that light at the end of a tunnel, where most people don't want to wait. But wait, guys, you need to wait. Stay on the train, because the destination is there. You just got to wait a bit longer. So
That's it. Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast,
Thanks
James.
for having me. I very
We appreciate it, mate.
I appreciate you guys.